Hello everyone, this is Mini Ninja speaking. For today's video, we're going to be looking at the rather unique Demoniacal Fit Majinbuster figure, which is technically a mishmash of two separate toys put into one overall package, being the full power Super Saiyan Son Goku figure, as well as its variant being the last year con exclusive Super Saiyan 2 Goku, which also features a little more battle damage on the figure, as well as that extra giant aura piece, which has been cloned as part of this particular package. Now, the reason why I'm saying only that part specifically clone is rather interesting enough on this particular toy. The unique sculpt items on this one, being mostly the chest and the Super Saiyan 2 hair bits, were actually apparently shown as renders very briefly after the initial con exclusive toy was released, and therefore are not direct copies but rather just more visual recreations of those bits. So they're actually technically unique pieces rather than just straight up clone parts. Now, as we take a quick look on the articulation here, it's worth noting that, unfortunately, much like the original full power Super Saiyan as well as the other figure which I'm going to be showing as part of this review, Goku suffers from a bit of stiff joint issues on this one right out of the box, as well as some issues around the shoulders, which is actually a little rather odd. Namely, in this case, the shoulders are particularly snug and kind of stuck at a bit at times. You are able to get them to move, and a little silicone oil would rectify this, as I ended up doing after the footage here, but it's worth noting that, at least on my copy, you kind of want to be careful. You're definitely going to notice a bit more squeakiness as you try to move those particular joints. Now, in terms of the other upper body bits, namely the middle waist point as well as the waist joint, those honestly are a little stiff on mine, but generally operate as they should, as you can kind of see here. And in terms of the elbows and wrists, no real issues there. Neck is a little limited in motion, but honestly that's about par for the original toys too, so not a huge surprise. And as you kind of notice there, the bangs and the face were a little loose on mine, but that is an issue I had with the original toys too, so I can't really fault them for that. At least it matches the original. Now, in terms of the hips, knees, ankles, and toes, as you can kind of see me testing those here, they're generally just fine. I have no real issues with these whatsoever. The joints seem to be decent quality enough, and most importantly for the ankles and toes, they hold their poses just fine, which is a very pleasant surprise considering that I've had a lot of issues with official toys as of late, especially for some of the newer releases, where the ankles are absolute rubbish and can't hold up, and thus the figures will constantly be falling down. So this one will be able to hold its own without too much issue. So all in all, a few quirks, but nothing that isn't unmanageable. Moving on to accessories, for the most part we have a standard contingent of regular Goku parts, being a few different facial expressions, starting off with yelling, to a bit more of a grimacing, and then the last one, which will be, I believe it's going to be a smirking face coming up next, which, along with the neutral face, that makes 4 overall faces total for the faceplates. Now, how these tend to fit on the figure, as we're about to demonstrate, is about as well as they did on the original toy, which is to say, not particularly well. As we also do a quick swap between the various bangs, first the Super Saiyan 1 one, and then the Super Saiyan 2 set, it's worth noting that unfortunately the way the bangs are set up don't actually help hold the faceplates into their position, so they always have a nasty habit of slipping out unless it's perfectly flush fit. Which is the same flaw as the original toy had, so I can't exactly fault Demoniacal Fit for having a similar issue, as they kept the exact same design. Now, in terms of the hands, I'll be honest, there's nothing really particularly special going on with the different pairs that are on here, as they're only a fairly standard collection on there. Although I would think, off the top of my head, someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong with this, there's actually a few more hands here than appeared in the original full-powered Super Saiyan setup, so it's worth noting that at least they do include a little bit more. Now, what I will say in terms of the hands on this particular toy I have here is that they're actually rather snug to remove and actually swap in and out, so I would probably advise you want to heat up both the joint as well as the hands you're about to switch in and out in order to make an easier transition. Also, the wrist joints do tend to stick out a little further than the body than you might expect, so they will be a little more visible. At least, that's how it is on the released figure that I happen to have here. Overall, not too bad though. Can't complain too much. Now, for the biggest inclusion, the aura, this one's kind of a mixed bag for me. While visually it is a decent representation of what the Event Exclusive figure have, it's worth noting that the electric bits don't seem to be plugging back into the base particularly well, and when I unboxed mine originally, it had a bit of an odd smell on it, which thankfully did wear off over time, but it might have to do something with the plastic quality, which is a little roughshod. It's a lot softer than you might expect, and in my case, the front part is actually peeling a bit, which suffice to say, doesn't match up how it is on the official one, which we're now bringing out for display purposes here. Which, as you can see, on top of being a much stiffer plastic, is also sharper in nature. Yeah, there's absolutely a difference in the plastic quality as well as a little on the coloration. And while the coloration you can kind of forgive, the fact that the plastic is just so much softer in general, not so much. Although I will say, at least in its defense, the electric bits on the official one don't plug in particularly well either. Now, as a brief reminder as we do a side by side here, the figure on the left wasn't released to be cloned when the figure on the right was originally designed, so yeah, we have actually quite a bit of different stuff going on there. Namely, the color scheme is the most obvious and glaring one, as the Demoniacal Fit Majinbuster is a lot more vibrant in terms of its color scheme, for the most part, compared to its more official brother in there. Even down to the skin tone, one's a little more bronze on the left, while the other one's a more of a kind of a ruddy pinkish hue. And of course, the shirt damage is completely different, as it's a unique sculpt, and the hair is also a unique sculpt, and color for that matter. The event one, as you can see, a lot more pearlescent, while the other one is a little more in line with what traditional figures had, with the more standard kind of mustard yellow look. Not necessarily off, but the difference is definitely there. Also, as a reminder that the hair sculpts are different, where the halo fits on the both figures is also quite different, and the halos themselves are of varying qualities, you can see. In terms of accessories though, the Demoniacal Fit figure actually has more accessories going on for it. Namely, an extra set of hands, the open palm key hands, are absolutely missing from the official release, plus the whole bang setup there is also not included, as it's strictly a Super Saiyan 2 figure for the convention one. In terms of the faces though, while they share mostly the same type of faces, how they went around handling the decals is as different as night and day. Also, the general shapes of the faces are quite different. I'd say the sculpt on the left themselves are much nicer in terms of quality, and in terms of how the decals are, it is a definite improvement in that regard to the original Full Power Super Saiyan, which both figures are based on. And that being said, some of the faces I feel are hit or miss on both releases. And also, just for, let's be honest here, for sake of fairness, in terms of the hand quality, I know I criticized the Demoniacal Fit Majinbuster for having some issues with some flashing on that. To be honest, that's also an issue with the real official figure. In terms of the quality though, the plastic is also a little more of a matte finish on the real one, but in terms of issues with seam lines and flashing, both figures have it, so there is no winner on that one. As you can kind of guess, I do prefer the official toy in this particular matchup, but when you look at the whole package, the Majinbuster is honestly not half a bad offer. It does give you a lot of bang for your buck on that one, and frankly, it's a lot more price conscious and matches a little better with the rest of the standard toy line. That being said, I do wish they spent a little more time fixing some issues that the original release had, namely the faceplates and the hair bangs, as well as there's some quality control issues in terms of the joints that still need to be worked out, I'm afraid. But all in all, if you can get it at a reasonable price, by all means if you need a cheaper Super Saiyan 2 Goku or something like that, and can't find the event version. Thanks for watching, folks. Catch you all later.